Hello, Namaste. I welcome you all to the 84th session of GURUBODHA. This session is brought to you by easyayurveda.com. I dedicate this and all of my works at the holy feet of Dr. H. Chandrasekhar Udipa. This class is made live possible for Easy Ayurveda weekly class subscribers. In the last session, we discussed regarding the gulkand, which is prepared with the rose petals and candy sugar. Can it be taken for a long or can it not be taken for long? With under the guidance of Guru Raja sir, it was concluded that it's good to have, but not so very good to have during all seasons. It is especially useful in pitta dominant disorders and seasons such as summer and autumn. Guru, let's discuss regarding the rose as it is one of the flowers which is almost worldwide available and has a huge range of potential benefits.
Rose, definitely it is one of the coolant herbs, particularly its flowers. Two important things are prepared out of this. That one is gulkan. The other one is the rose water on application to the face in order to enhance the varna or the color or the complexion. Usually multani mitti or something like that will be added with the rose water and it is applied. Wherever there is a burning sensation, rose water is applied. And gulkan is very commonly used one for the purpose of nutrition value, taste, as well as pitta nullifying effect or pitta pacifying effect is there. And as a important one, there are plenty of varieties of roses are there, but very peculiarly there's a bunch roses which are it's also called as in Kannada as a paneer gulabi. That's one which is usually used for this. It has a typical odor as well as taste, and of course it is usually in a pink color, which is most abundantly available, and it is used for all these purposes. Of course, wherever there is ulceration or wherever there is a pitta dominancy, burning sensation, daha, and such other conditions, and wherever because of the ushnata, the person is getting weak and weak day by day, in those conditions, gulkan, particularly with made out of peculiarly rose, because we have gulkan made out of many other plant petals also, flower petals. So very specifically the rose petals where it is involved in the gulkan, that is usually given with the butter as well as sometimes with even the banana. Many combinations are available. So that will be soothing as well as promoting kapha to some extent. So with the person's individual character or prakriti, we need to understand how much one can consume it. So it is not should be taken. It should not be taken throughout the year. It may not be good, but periodically, whenever it is required, it can be definitely used and it will be nourishing. And whatever the drugs or whatever the things, except those fall under the category of rasayana, only those should be taken till the target is achieved. So when initially we start any drug, when keeping in mind a particular target, once that is achieved, drug has to be stopped or it should be tapered down to some level, which is very much therapeutically has no value.
Sanskrit synonyms given in various nigantus. Shatapatri and Taruni are quite commonly used, although some other synonyms are also given to explain rose. And classical categorization, Bhavaprakasha Nigantu specifically mentions it in the group of flowers, that is Pushpavarga, and Kayadev Nigantu, Raja Nigantu have their own classifications. Can you please explain regarding the properties and its potential benefits, sir?
Definitely, it is a little bit of tikta, but it is not so severely tikta, but it's a very mild tikta and kashaya in nature. Madura cannot be straight away elicited or appreciated once if it is taken. And by nature, it is lagu and snigdha in nature, but it is still komala, we call it as it will be soothing. And of course, in Vipaka, it is Madura and Virya is Shita. Even though it is Tridoshahara, but it is predominantly Pitta Shamaka and it is good to the heart. That's the reason many times whenever we do some Svedana purposes on heart or something like that, even to the eyes, we try to cover those areas with these cooling petals. So that in that, the rose petals are also used in order to give an ambience as well as a touch of class, a richness, as well as something which is very much pharmacologically active ingredient, something like that, with that intention of pacifying the pitta or bringing the coolness to the body. So usually rose is used, and of course it's typically Shukrala in nature because of its potent Shita guna. It's not because of any other rasa or anything that, but Shukrala is because of its Shita guna.
And probably due to this reason, maybe it is used as part of a pan. I mean, in the especially when we make a pan, gulkandi is used as an ingredient, and right, it's a dry powder and distillate arca are used in that, and these are basic ones. And going quickly with the it's, different sort of uses. Rose petals, dry petals are applied over the wounds for healing. Paste of the petals is applied to the body to control excessive sweating, also to give pleasant smell. So it is one of the contenders which is frequently used in treating excessive sweating, because of various reasons. The extract of the rose petals is used as drops for eye wash, to relieve burning sensation, and also to relieve that irritation due to computer vision syndrome. And the dry paste of the petals of rose is taken internally in a dose of 5 grams along with milk to treat gastritis and duodenal ulcers. So a gargle, its cream with essential oil, etc. are also there in the use. Coming to the different references of rose in the different nigantus, I've just made a collage of thing, and it is explained here. All the pharmacological actions that are explained in different nigantus I have collated here. Can you please take us through this, sir?
These are all even very commonly, we are pointing out only at the handling of pitta. For that purposes, we can use these rose petals or rose in the different forms. Maybe dry powdered rose petal dry powder is also available. Commonly used one is for the purpose of giving Kriya effect or cardiac tonic or coolant effect to the mind as well as the heart. And the other one is very importantly what we are using is for the purpose of varnya. When it promotes the skin complexion, for that purpose we are using it in many forms, that rose water and rose petals in the form of lepa and all those things. And very comfortably we use in many pans and anything which where it's a shukral action as well as it's a clear odor. A peculiar odor is there that the flavor gives the good, called as mukha prakshalana dravya. For that purpose, they are using it. And regarding the grahi action, of course, it is a very good thing in IBS as well as ulcerative colitis. It is very coolant. It even helps in healing the wounds and ulcers inside the gut. And of course, it will be very beneficial. And digestion process, it's not such a big improvement of digestion can be seen from this because it is not going to help in that way. Only when there is vidagdha pitta, then it may help to some extent to reduce the pitta and bring about the proper balancing of pitta, thereby helps the digestion. And of course, dahara is one of its important function. For that, we use in many places. Maybe even for when we are doing some svedana karma, if any organ has to be protected, the area will be covered with the petals of rose. Then it is tied with some erandapatra, something like that, or some coverings. Then the svedana is given. And of course, in the laryngitis and such type of laryngitis conditions, it can be used if it is involvement of pitta is there. Otherwise, it is not going to help in any much way. But it is a very good one when applying for mukha dushika, like pimples. It can be applied even to the scars to some extent. And of course, it reduces the trishna, burning sensation as well as trishna. So that's why many times rose petals are added to the drinks, coolant drinks, in order to enhance its coolness.
And it is kashaya, and so it can slightly potentially increase kapha dosha. Correct, sir?
If it is mixed with sugar and or banana or something like that, then it is given, then it potentiates the kapha dosha. Otherwise, simply straight away taking them, it is not going to increase the kapha dosha to such an extent because it is not such a strong kapha dosha vardaka. It's only to a marginal one.
Yeah, and an interesting thing is one of the nigantus explains it as harshada. Well, this is the reason why one is that aggravated pitta often leads to short-tempered nature, anger outburst, etc. So it really is helpful literally in cooling and calming the mind, and probably that is also the reason why it's also used in a lot in the pan. And I've seen in the explanation of Tambula, it is told something like vashya, meaning pan is useful to like control the mind of the other person. So this being pleasant and having a pleasant smell probably helps there also.
Establishing these things is very typically difficult one. Maybe because see, harsha, the pleasant, useful in depression. We don't know the cause of depression, but if a person has an ability to understand or appreciate the particular smell or it's a touch or its cooling effect, definitely it will be Harshada. Otherwise, it is not going to help in any way. So even in Tambula, of course, it controls the mind of other person. I don't know how it is going to control the other person's mind. Tambula, it is specifically used, particularly these rose petals are used for the purpose of mouth freshening effect. And of course, it is a coolant one. So for those two important things are Vaktra dosha, you can call it as, to remove that one, it is used. To some extent, if it is used with like karpura or even with some sharkara, sugar candy, definitely it will help to increase the shukra to some extent.
This is just the reference from Baba Prakasha Guruchari Varga regarding Tambula. It says Vasham here in the second line. So I was pointing out towards that. And also like in ancient times, I know it's very hard to prove with like modern things. In ancient times, whenever there is business agreement is to be made, or when the bride and groom alliance is to be made, usually the exchange of Tambula was happening. So probably that was a reason. And
It is something that we may have an advertisement saying that you just invite the Bharatis with a particular type of thing, that advertisement is there. So maybe because of that reason. But once we have agreement and mindset to that these are the two, they have agreement, I mean, they're accepted, both of them, and they're going to get married, then all other things is only just a show. It has to go on. So there we cannot say just because simply giving something will become Vashya. But of course, whenever something has to be given, even though it's a protocol based one, if something goes wrong, then there will be difficulties in arranged marriages. That's very common. It happens.
Yeah, not an expert of rose, lotus, and other. Guruji sir has given a beautiful explanation about rose and its uses. Sir. Regarding Vashya, I would like to add, can it be addicting? So once you start using it, like you are addicted to that Vashya, it takes you under Vashya rather than we imparting Vashya effect on somebody else. Would it be like that also? Correct me if I'm wrong, Guruji sir.
Typically, it can be understood in both the ways, that if you give to offer to somebody, then he will be feeling good with that because of its taste as well as its aroma and all those things. And if you are regularly consuming tambula with these things, then of course you will be get addicted because of its smell and taste and all those things. So we can understand it in both the ways, but anyway, it is not such a strong one. There are very other strong additives are there. I cannot say that because it is useful with the tambula, rose may become such an addictive one. That depends from person to person.
Rose addictive because of its beautiful appearance, and tambula addictive because of its taste.
And Jayaragu has written, probably that's why red roses are given as gifts.
Absolutely.
To make the environment pleasant.
Yeah, and we can also consider these two, Vashya and Harsha also, I think, no, Hebar sir? Harsha was there somewhere?
Harsha is there with the rose. Yeah.
Harsha is there with rose. Harsha is the word often used with Vajikarana. And rose is also Vrishya, like it has an effect of Shukra enhancing. So with these two features also, it can be considered when we sum up all these things, it can be Vashya due to being Vrishya and also Shukrala. So I think that's an added point, I think so. And Vajikarana Dravyas are also best in depression, as you have mentioned, like useful in depression. So probably jasmine has a strong odor, as Guruji rightly pointed out. It may act on like Gandha, so Prithyuha Bhuta, so it may act on Gandha, and probably this rose petals, it is more attractive than the jasmine, so it may act through Drushti. So like all Panchendriyas are also involved in the Vajikara effect. So at least these two, and there is milk and other things for taste and apanga and other things for the skin. So Panchendriyas should be stimulated and also should be given a Vajikara effect.
Sadhya Shukra Karam Payam. That is the reason, I think, for that reason the Paya was given.
Yeah, and also considering all these things, I think clinically there is good amount of hints to suggest that this is useful in, say, improving the mood and probably a potential contender for antidepressant action. Probably a clinical trial on this based on exclusively this explanation can be very well taken up. And so somebody has asked like which types of rose should be used in medication. Guru sir, please.
It's what we call it as a paneer gulabi. It will be very small comparatively, and it is the Rosa centifolia. I think Rosa centifolia is the one, and it is very typically comes in light pink color, and which is used for making preparing rose water as well as it is used in manufacturing gulkan.
Thank you, sir. And I also found Kubjaka variety of rose. It's plant musk rose, Rosa mostata. Has again similar things. Raghuram sir, please.
Yeah, to add up, there also rose is also used in perfume, ether, and maybe soaps also. I think rose is used in preparation of soap also to give that aromatic effect. I think even rose is used in beauty clinics for manicure and pedicure purpose. So to add to the water, even the rose drops. So multiple dimensions, like different areas of use of rose.
Definitely one of the Ayurvedic dravya which can be perceived in many different indriyas. And important formulations. Rose water is used for bhavana to prepare pravala pisti, and also in the preparation of mukta pisti. Again, this pravala and mukta also are used for largely pitta disorders, and also used in psychiatric disorders with high aggressiveness, even in schizophrenia, especially in mania, to control the aggressiveness and money splurging mentality, and like I am the king, that kind of attitude. To control that, these are used, and probably and these are also, rose is also explained as hridya, meaning good for heart, and prava and mukta are also used in a lot of hridya medicines. And is also used in preparing a manikya pastry also. So, and gulkand and gulab arka are the main medicines which Guru sir has already covered. Coming to few questions, how should rose be used for improving eyesight and laryngitis? Guru sir, please.
Rightly, if it is pointed out how it is going to act as chakshusha, maybe when we are using a lot of screen and screen time is more, and even we are using a lot of mobiles and such things, computer vision syndrome, and of course, rose can be used in the form of, it is used in along with the karpura. It is used in laryngitis conditions, improve the voice where there is a pitta is dominatingly, and with the following with the kapha, the voice box or the udanavata has been occupied or covered, something like that. So avarana has been done to remove that. In such conditions, it can be used. And for chakshusha purpose, even directly, rose water can also be dropped to the eyes. But how far it is going to improve one's eyesight, it is very difficult. Maybe your vision becomes clarified and your irritation in the eye will reduce, and the burning sensation in the eye will reduce. Maybe watering from the eye will be reduced. So in this way, it is going to help. Probably because of this reason, Acharya said as a chakshusha.
And also, I've seen rose water is taken, and a cotton swab is taken and dipped in rose water and kept on the closed eyes. This is especially done when someone comes from red hot sun in the afternoon, and also during summers when someone is traveling excessively, or even some engineers follow this to cool off the eyes. It really relaxes and relieves the burning sensation.
The question I have about the rose petals with camphor, in what proportion, sir, that we have to use it? That is one question. The second question is the rose that you are talking about that is used in for eyesight, etc. How common is that rose these days? That gulabi, that typical fragrant rose. It's very rare these days. So can we use any other rose? Would that have the same effect?
Typically, that gulabi or the rose, which is very aromatic in nature, use it for the purpose of preparing gulkand and rose water. Most of them are taken away for that purpose, and whatever available in the market for regular usage of puja and decoration purposes is another type of roses. So if you ask the same vendor, definitely they can provide you the gulabi with that is aroma typically. That one, but it's called paneer gulabi in here. I don't know what exactly they call it in US. This is a very typical, and it is having a very good aroma, and these can be used on the eye. And regarding the combination of camphor and as well as gulabi is concerned, one petal of gulabi is taken or the rose is taken. In that, a pinch of pachikarpura, so it's also camphor, edible type of camphor that is being placed, rolled and covered from all direction, and it is chewed and swallowed. It is going to help you in laryngitis.
Thank you there, sir. And okay, so that covers all the aspects of rose. Starting from the Ravagana, moving directly to Kaisiksa topic is of the Agantuja disorders. It is explained in Ashtanga Hridaya that A, Bhuta, Visha, Vayu, Agni, someone coming into contact of that and then leading to dosha aggravation leads to Agantuja diseases. Raghuram sir, can you please explain what exactly is Agantuja Rogas and why that has been mentioned? Because explain that first the positive factor happens and then there is dosha aggravation and then the symptom manifestation. Almost in even Nija Rogas also causative factors followed by dosha aggravation, pathology, and then symptoms. So why this categorization is made? Can please lead us?
So interesting question once again. The diseases, there is a big classification of diseases, many fold classification. One among that is Nija and Agantuja. So another classification is Nija, Agantuja and Manasika Roga. So where the diseases related to the mind are also separately mentioned. So here coming to Agantuja Roga. Agantu is something which doesn't belong to us, which doesn't belong to the body, which has come from outside. A foreign substance or a foreign object or something which basically doesn't belong to the body. We can consider it as Agantuja. So here when we see the Nija Rogas and Agantuja Rogas are totally different. Nija Rogas are those which are caused by the doshas, the dosha aggravation. So when the doshas are disturbed and put into a state of imbalance, so as long as they are in balance, they don't produce any disease. But when they are put into imbalance, so we know that the Kshaya doesn't do much, only some small manipulations and adjustments shall be done. And different stages of Prakopa or different variants, like even Prakopa, Prasara, and from there on going through the disease stages till where the doshas take and produce a disease is called as Nija Rogas. Again, coming to the Nija Rogas itself, the dosha aggravation also differs from person to person. The etiological factors also differs from person to person, how they are caused and other things. And straight away coming to, so because it was important to know what are the Nija Rogas, straight away coming to the Agantuja Rogas. Agantu, as I already said, something which has come from outside. Hebbar sir has already mentioned the different causes. So it may be at the physical level or at the mental level also. We will touch upon that. So here the Visha or the Vayu, contaminated or polluted air, so Agni, as you can see there, so the injuries, from all these things, the disease process will start. So in Nija Roga, any etiological factors, we will see what is a Nidana first. Nidana means something which has the Setu Kartavyatako. So that means a factor is called as an etiological factor of a disease when it has a capacity to produce an entire disease process. It should not initiate. It's not like just disturbing. Sanchaya and Prakopa, that is why they are not the stages of diseases. And Prasara, wherein there is spread of doshas, is also not a stage, not a disease. The disease is called disease only in the 5th and 6th stages of Kriya Kala, or the stages of the disease. Where in 5th stage, the disease gets manifested. In the 4th stage, in the 1st stage, there is accumulation of doshas. In the 2nd stage, that is what we call as Sanchaya or Chaya. The 2nd stage is called as Prakopa, wherein there is aggravation of doshas. So the Chaya itself will go further aggravation. And Prasara is a stage where the aggravated doshas will tend to flow to the other parts of the body. They may go and contaminate the other parts of the body. Next to these doshas which are in circulation or in search of a weak tissue, we call that as Sthana. So there they will go and lodge. That is called as Sthana Samshraya. So the doshas, aggravated doshas, are circulating in the body. They are trying to find out a weak and susceptible dhatu or the tissue. Once they find, they lodge there. Like they can easily find out which dhatus are. So these dhatus, we call them as dushyas, and the malas are also called as dushyas. So the excreta are also called as dushyas. For a disease to manifest, Nija or Agantuja Vyadhi, the dosha, dusha, sammorchana, the interlocking or amalgamation of aggravated dosha and a weak or susceptible or a compromised tissue. This event is very, very essential. This takes place in the fourth stage, that is the samshaya, where the doshas try to enter the weak tissues, weaker dhatus. So once they go into the dhatus, the reaction starts, and the reaction between dosha and dushya or the tissue will give rise to a set of unclear signs and symptoms. These signs and symptoms will depict or indicate that in future, within a few hours or few days, a disease will be manifested. The disease has not yet manifested in the fourth stage also, but there are symptoms which indicate a future disease will be formed, or a disease will be formed in future. Those symptoms are called as purvarupas. In modern language, we call it as prodroma or prodromal symptoms or premonitory symptoms of a disease. And after that, the dosha samurchana completes in the fifth stage. It starts in the fourth stage, Tanasamshaya, and completes in the fifth stage. Some premonitory symptoms disappear, some get matured into the symptoms, and some new symptoms are added in the Vektavastha. So this is the sequence of the formation of a disease. And the last stage is stage of complication. In the Vektavastha, the disease manifests completely with its signs and symptoms, and we name a disease like Jvara, Raktapitta, Asa, Yakshma, Prameha, etc., etc. in the fifth stage only. Until then, the disease does not get a nomenclature. It doesn't get a name. And going ahead, Veda is a stage of complications where the disease further progresses and gets into the stage of complications, difficult to treat. Why these 6 stages have been explained to indicate that each stage is successively tougher than the previous one. Sanchaya is the easiest stage to treat if a doctor can identify, and Veda is the toughest stage where even the sadhya sadhyata, the prognosis of the disease, whether it is curable or not, will be decided by this. We will come back to Nidana. A Nidana is any etiological factor which satisfies the disease process, or a samprapti we call it as. It has to initiate, progress and complete the disease process until the disease is manifested and the disease is named. Only then it is called as Nidana. Well, let us take, for example, there are two people. One person, both people are exposed to the same etiological factors, like exposure to cold breeze. They have gone to the same party. They have taken cold drinks. They have taken a lot of sweet, and there is kapha aggravation in both those people. So one person may not have adequate kapha aggravation so as to cause a disease. It may cause kapha disturbance and it will settle down. So because in that person, the kapha did not have the strength to go ahead and produce a disease. In that person, it is not called as a Nidana. In the next person, B, the same causes, exposure to cold wind, drinking cold drinks, consumption of excessive sweets, will cause symptoms, and it will progress to become worse with time. And it may even cause some cough or sore throat or something for established number of days. For the person B, these things are considered as etiological factors or Nidana because they could complete a disease process. They could answer a question completely for the given number of marks. So that is why they are called as Nidana. So here in Nija Rogas, the Nidanas are those which aggravate Vata or Pitta or Kapha. They may be in the form of Ahara, that is foods, Vihara, so in the form of life activities, and many more things, even the stress factor and many more. Like being excessively anxious may aggravate Vata, being excessively reactive or angry can aggravate Pitta, excess sedentary life can aggravate Kapha. So these things, so it can be in the form of a food or an activity or anything, or the impact of climates and many situations on these doshas. So these are called as the Nidanas which aggravate Vata, Pitta and Kapha, and those aggravated Vata, Pitta and Kapha goes through these 6 stages of pathogenesis, attack the weaker tissues, get lodged there and create some reaction and produce a disease. These are called as Nija Rogas. And coming to Agantuja Rogas, Agantu is caused by the external factors. They are caused by external factors like an injury or an effect of poison or an effect of a fall. And when we consider manas or the mind trauma, and even today's microorganisms like a bacterial infection or sepsis or anything can be considered as Agantuja Roga, so which comes from outside. The causative factor is outside and it can be identified. The factor can be identified other than Vata, Pitta or Kapha. Okay, so we will also touch upon some examples. Like there is Agantuja Jvara. A fever classification is a big one. Charaka has contributed a big chapter for Jvara. Jvara has many types. There is also an Agantuja Jvara there. So here what happens, in Jvara Prakarana, so Charaka in the context of Jvara, Charaka explains 4 types of Agantus or Agantuja, how they can occur. and the treatment also will be in accordance to that. So what happens in Agantuja is, so we may get a question whether the doshas are involved here or not. Doshas are involved, but in a later context. First, there is Abhigata or Abhishanga or Abhishapa, as you can see on the slide there. These are the 4 different types or the 4 different factors which are causing Agantuja diseases. Wherever Agantu is mentioned. In some diseases, Agantu type is not mentioned, but we can infer. So right in the Jwara, which is the first disease to be explained by Charaka, Master has explained Abhigataja, Abhishangaja, Abhishapa and Abhichara as 4 different factors or 4 different categories of Agantuja disorders or the diseases caused by external agents. So this rule, many rules and regulations indicated in Jwara Prakarana or the fever, what we can call it as, are applicable to many other disorders where Agantuja is mentioned or not mentioned also. Now we have a condition called as Urakshata, which has been explained in the context of Rajakshma. Urakshata is a chest injury from which many symptoms are formed. There, Agantuja, Rajakshma, we don't get a mention of that. Instead of that, we have a condition called as Urakshata. When you go through the causative factors of Urakshata or a chest injury, all are external itself. So indirectly or directly, this is also an Agantuja itself because the causative factors are external. There is a fall and other things also. There is injury, there is wrestling, lot more things, doing exercises beyond one's capacity. Okay, pulling and pushing things, falling down, so many things are included. So it's in indirect type of Agantuja factors here. So we may consider the same factors to aggravate doshas also. In Agantuja Rogas, what happens is in a later context, the doshas are involved, not at the beginning. First, there is an injury or there is an insult, injury or insult, both those words I'm using, and then following that, the doshas will get involved. Same pattern happens in Manasika Roga also, mental disorders. First, the mind gets afflicted, Rajo and Tamoguna are disturbed. First, the mind gets disturbed, and there is some disturbances in the mind, and later it afflicts the body, and then the body doshas are, physical doshas are disturbed. So in Nija Rogas, first physical doshas, Vata, Pitta, Kapha are aggravated, singly, doubly or in combination. In Agantuja, first there is an injury or an insult, and then the dosha aggravation take place. And the dosha aggravation will also follow its own sequence of production of a disease. In Manasika Roga, the mind is afflicted first, Rajo and Tamogunas are afflicted, the Satvika Guna takes a beating, and then the person is disturbed by mind, and later the body is also affected. So body and mind are 2 sides of the same coin. And then the Vata, Pitta, Kapha gets aggravated. It's not a rule, but will get aggravated if the disease extends for a pretty long time. So these are the different patterns of diseases where we need to understand where dosha involvement is there. But dosha involvement is there. At some stage, the doshas will get involved. So coming to the 4 stages in brief, Abhigataja is due to injury. Already as Dr. Hebbar sir has mentioned there, it is due to injury, mainly due to some external agents like cuts, wounds, all those things, fire, burns, and that is a beating from a whip or a stick, bamboo, fist. So many things are, even a bite by the teeth, all these things are considered as Abhigataja. And when we come to Abhishangaja, so that is the second one. So Abhishangaja, again, Kama Shoka, Bhaya Krodha. So all these things, see here the mental attributes are given here. There is Kama, so there is desire, there is grief, fear, anger, and at last Bhuta has been mentioned here. Very important for us. So Bhuta can be taken in 2 contexts here. One type of Bhuta has been explained in Unmada, Bhuta Unmada, like the spirits and evil forces which we cannot see are causing the disease. So things which cannot be seen can also be considered as bacteria, virus, fungus, infectious agents and all those things. Because when we go through the Bhuta Unmada or Bhutaja Unmada, many are psychiatric conditions, many are mental disorders. Apart from that, they may also be, because the word Bhuta has been mentioned there, unseen, unexperienced things. There may be some type of infections and other things, or contact with something which we don't know can happen. For example, in Charaka Chikitsa, Master Charaka gives one more quotation. So before that, okay, so I'll take that example, this one reference. Visha Vruksha Anila Sparshat, there he mentions a breeze following through the, that is flowing through the Visha Vruksha, like a toxic plant or a poisonous tree. When it comes into contact with the skin, or when the person inhales that, okay, it may not be a plant, it may be only an example there. So here it means to tell that the air or the breeze carrying some agents can also afflict you due to the exposure, due to breathing of such air. So when we see all these things, Vishangaja comprises of some things to which we come into contact with unknown forces. Along with that, the mental conditions like kama, shoka, desire is good, excessive desire here, uncontrolled desire, uncontrolled grief, uncontrolled fear or anger. So we need to take ati, that word has to be used there. So, or unmonitored or unbalanced. So Vishavruksha Anila Sparsha is one more thing. Okay, Anyaihi Vishaihi Sambhavaihi, again Charaka tells other toxic elements or toxic gases or poisonous substances, anything can come into contact with you and cause those diseases. And then we'll go to the third variety, Abhichara or Abhishanga. Abhichara and Abhishanga. So these are the fourth, that is third and fourth factors. Abhichara here means the spells or exorcism, we can call it as a black magic or conjuring. So somebody doing something from outside so that it affects your mind and later it also affects your body. So suppose if you come to know that somebody has conjured or somebody has done a black magic on you, it will play on your mind continuously. So for example, if you see some unwanted and unreliable thing, you open the main door and see some lemons or chilies pierced with some pin or something or nail or something which has been placed in front of your door. So that probably is a belief that somebody has done some black magic or witchcraft and they have kept it near your door. So that keeps on, you don't know who has kept and what has happened, but it keeps on playing on your mind. Here the manasika doshas are disturbed. Later the doshas will come into the play and cause the diseases. So here the mind factor first and the physical factor later. Abhishapa again means curse or conjuring or excommunication, what we can call it as, all those things. So these are the four varieties of Agantuja Rogas or the Agantuja conditions, the factors which cause Agantuja Rogas. Here what happens is, so how to identify the Agantuja Roga? Agantuja Roga is identified on the basis of that first they are not caused by the doshas. The disease process is not initiated first by the doshas. That is the first category. The second category, it should fit into the category of Abhigata, Abhichara, Abhishanga, etc. If one of these factors are causing the Agantuja Roga, any disease, then it will be considered as Agantuja Roga, and in a later time period, the doshas will be aggravated. So the context or the examples are Agantuja has been mentioned in Jwara, in Unmada, and where else? Agantuja Chardi also is mentioned. In the Chardi, we can come through that. Bagandhara, Vidradi, and in Shota also we have Abhigataja and Vishaja Shota. So these also may be considered Abhigataja and Vishaja Shota. So as I mentioned, Bagandhara, Vidradi is there. So Jwara, Unmada are always there. So where these Agantuja varieties have been mentioned. And coming to Daha, Agantuja has not been mentioned, but Shataja and Marma Bigataja Daha, we are having these two conditions. Shataja due to injury and Marma Bigataja Daha due to injury to the Marmas. So these two can be considered as examples. Coming to the treatment, initially we need to see if it is Agantuja Roga, if the factors are there, like a grief or a sorrow in the mental conditions, they need to be detached. Again, counseling and also some encouragement to the patient, the Dhairya Atma Vijnanam, as we tell, those need to be given. And if there is an injury or there is a cut or a wound or whatever it is there, so exorcism is there, we need to identify the factor and isolate them. Nidana Parivajana has to be done. So with these things. So in Agantuja Roga, another mainstay of the treatment is also Daiva Vyapashraya Chikitsa. It will be an elaborate topic. So divine therapy, we can call it as supernatural therapies. Daiva Vyapashraya Chikitsa also should be considered in this particular condition. And if doshas are involved and the doshic predominance is seen, the dosha balancing strategies including Shodhana, Shamana, Patya, and yoga, meditation, everything can be brought into the picture. So this is a brief thing about Agantuja, I suppose.
There was another question that because it is explained Bhuta, some authors compare Bhuta with say, microorganisms. Can sepsis be considered as Agantuja or not? One way to answer that is sepsis can happen both due to external causes like an injury causing sepsis, and also a microbial infection due to internal cause also can happen. So only if it is coming through an external injury, such a sepsis can be considered as Agantuja Roga. Correct, sir? Raghuram, sir?
Absolutely, sir. So that is the way to understand if it is caused, most of the sepsis we know it has a base in infections, and infections will proceed ahead to create a cascade, like a sequence, or what we can call it as a continuous chain of events in the body. So that is what we call it as sepsis. It is see, once there is an infection, there is a response in the body. That response from the immune system in an exaggerated way or in an improper way will cause sepsis, and sepsis has different symptoms. Though sepsis has a set of symptoms where physical conditions are involved, but when we see the cause will be from the outside, most of the times like an infection and other things. As the question itself clarifies, it can be considered. So seeing through the Ayurveda lens, it can be considered the way you explained.
Thank you, sir. And there is another question that does avichara work only when you become cognizant of the fact that witchcraft has been done, or can the disease manifest even without being aware of it?
Without being aware? So that needs to be, so it can be. So not only being aware plays on your mind. Without being aware also, many people are afflicted, and in a later part of time they will come to know why their diseases are not curable so easily, and somebody points out, an astrologer or somebody who is specialized in that science of astrology or sorcery may give a clarification that probably since no reason has been found out and no treatment is working out with you, better see if something has been done. Do these things, these measures like Shanti, Homa, visiting temples, and lot more things, and Daiva Vyapashraya, and just see. And in many conditions, doing this Daiva Vyapashraya Chikitsa magically works out in those conditions. That clearly gives a clue that there are some things, some factors beyond our understanding which might have caused those diseases. Maybe the infections also. So that is why they are considered under Bhuta or Bhuta Vidya. So yes, knowingly or unknowingly, there may be an impact of Bhuta.
So does the effect of Vastu, like south facing house, also come under Avichara? Probably yes, right, sir?
Yes, sir. So it will come. So that is the classification where we can put it through.
Sir, regarding Nija and Agantuja Roga, sir, just I need a clarification for that here. Example I am taking is a Raja action, sir. If it is considered as a tuberculosis, as a disease comparatively, then whether it is considered as a Nija or Agantuja, one thing, sir. And the second thing is, if it's an Abhighataja, if any external injuries has been happened, regarding the injuries. After that, there is a formation of sepsis or infections or any inflammation is there. In that conditions, whether that is considered as an Agantuja Vyadhi or directly or an Nija Vyadhi. Or if sometimes first directly, one example is there nowadays, that is COVID-19. That is a infection has been come from outside. Then later symptoms has been going to be seen. This is Agantuja. Later it become a Nija. But you can able to understand regarding this.
Absolutely, Karim sir. So the answer is yes, it can be considered because Vishavayu and other things have been clearly mentioned by Master Charaka. So we can consider the COVID example you have given also, though the symptoms are physical, but the agent causing the disease, say anything which causes a disease which is not a dosha can be considered as Agantuja itself, and including the example you have given about Raja Ekshma. There is an injury, and later the doshas come to that particular place and take over the disease process, and they go ahead to produce a disease process and complete the pathogenesis or the samprapti. So though most of the things are done by doshas in a later condition, we need to see from where it starts, where it all starts. The root point of where the disease has started. Seeing those things, they can be considered as Agantuja.
Thank you, sir. And there's another question here, like how to distinguish between Nija and Agantuja just by looking at the disease symptoms, Lakshanas, or just by looking at the disease symptoms or Lakshanas, how to know Nidana? Sir?
Agantuja, Rogas will already be, that is the point I mentioned. So Agantuja Rogas will have something coming from the outside. So they should fit into the category of Abhigata, Abhishanga, Abhichara, or Abhishapa. They have to fit. Some diseases, they have to fit in those factors. Okay, maybe like a Abhishapa and other things we will come to know very much later. So initially we start treating a disease as Nija Roga itself. Here Upashaya and Upashaya will come into the question. We will think that it is a Nija Roga, treatments are given, multiple doctors are attending, no symptomatic relief, no disease is relieved. So ultimately the patient will go to the some sorcerer or some astrologist, and probably seeing their planetary positions that days and other things, or through some examination or through their expertise, they will tell that you need to do these Daiva Pashraya Chikitsas or take a different route to cure these diseases. No medicine is going to cure your disease. At that point, Abhichara or Abhishapa can be diagnosed. Until then, the doctors will treat it as a Nija Roga itself. So here again, Upashaya and Upashaya, since it is not subsiding with anything and subsiding with the Daiva Vyapashraya Chikitsa, that is a point of conclusion where we can tell that it might be an Abhichara or Abhishapa and it was not a Nija Roga. But we were treating the doshas and the dosha related symptoms there, or the disease thinking that it is caused by the doshas.
Thank you, sir. Guru, sir, please.
Whenever Agantuja has to be considered, many times we try to find out something which is marked from the outside, which is entering to the body, and later it is giving rise to the manifestation of doshic imbalances. It typically depends on the person. For example, one who is very much educated and all those things, then if you consider and tell him that this disease may be because somebody has given shapa to you or somebody has done some abhichara to you, because of that black magic or witchcraft you have been suffering from, may not be going to readily accept it. And even we are not in a position to readily establish this is the science behind this happens like this. It is very difficult. But those who are having a faith on those type of things readily get afflicted with these things. For example, one who believes in Bhuta, Daya, all these things. So definitely if you say this is because of your vitiated Vayu or something like that, or Bhuta, something like that, they readily accept this and goes for the Deva Bhashaya Chikitsa. But whereas educated, so-called educated person may not straight away accept this, and until unless all other modalities fails, then is doctors say that it is not possible, we can't understand what is exactly these things. Then if somebody says, see, you got something with the Naga dosha, something with the, you need to go to there and there, you do some homa, havana, yajna, then only he starts believing in that. So this is what typically we can see that. But still, while identifying Agantuja, something like that, for example, a person never played or since a long time has not played, suddenly goes for a cricket match and plays the whole day, and the next morning he will have a lot of muscle pain and end up in jwara. So this is an Agantuja one. So something like that, the Abhigata has taken place because of the injury, or some quarrel has been taken place, he had some skirmish with the people, they might have hit him and he might have hit somebody, so he might have an injury. It may be a blunt injury. That blunt injury may be causing jwara next day. That is also there. This is also Agantuja. So typically such type of things will be there, where evidently we can make out something, a factor which is responsible for the increase of the doshas inside the body. Otherwise, the one which is happens inside the body without the much thing is usually our own way of responding to dinacharya, ritucharya and the food what we consume. Slowly we will altering our doshic imbalance inside the body day by day and many days, and at the end it may end up in a roga. So that is not the Agantuja category. Agantuja category will have a very sharp manifestation soon after when it comes in contact with the body or something things happens.
Are there any marked symptoms exclusively for Agantuja Rogas? Meaning, just with the symptoms, can we diagnose a disease as Agantuja cause? Raghavan sir, is it possible?
Yeah, it is. I think some separate symptoms are mentioned in the classics. I think the Charaka is the best point of reference. So where at least to make some differentiation, some symptoms are given. And again, when we go to so the injury, see Abhigataja, there will be external injury or something. And when we go to the Bhuta or the Bhuta concept, and when we read through the Charaka Samhita, so Unmada Prakarana, so there we will get a set of symptoms according to each Bhuta. So we don't know whether it is a Bhuta or a mental condition or an infection, long sustaining some condition which is causing these things. Okay, so like that, so we can find even in Jwara Prakarana also, while explaining particular reasons like Vishavayu and all those things, particular etiological factors and particular symptoms of these four conditions have also been explained in the classics. So the point of reference will be Charaka, so and other treatises. We can get the symptoms there.
Thank you all. See you in the next session of GURUBODHA next time. Namaste.